And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our information session on hosting regional moots. We're really excited about our regional moot program. It's been one of the most delightful things about this past year, this past academic year that we have been in, that we've been able to revive our regional moot program, which of course was on hiatus during the heat of the pandemic. But now we've been able to begin opening that back up again. It's still not fully open completely. Anyway, I'm joined today by Signum's Regional Moot Coordinator, Karita Alexander. Hi, Karita. How are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about what it means to host a regional moot, what is involved with that, because I think that there are a lot of people I've heard from or talked to whenever I bring up regional moots, like during my broadcasts and stuff. People are always excited about it. I'm always getting lots of suggestions like, oh, you should come to wherever the people are, right? Like a lot of people are really excited about the idea of having a regional moot at a place near them, right? That we should come and do a regional moot. But actually, we should probably begin by not assuming everybody knows what even we're talking about, right? I keep
Yes.
saying, I've already been saying now, regional moots here for several minutes, right? And people might not even know exactly what a Signum regional moot is. Of course, our moots are our little mini conferences. Our conferences, Signum's conferences are always designed to be a sort of hybrid between, a hybrid fan scholarship events. We have some very learned people giving very learned papers. We have people giving more sort of like fan response and fan discussion. We have lots of different kinds of sessions during regional moots. They can vary very widely. Sometimes we have what will feel like a more kind of traditional scholarly conference atmosphere, right? Where we have people presenting paper, series of people presenting papers. And sometimes we have a much more a sort of different and informal agenda. I think, for instance, of the really fun moot we had, the very last moot, actually, before the pandemic hit, our SoCal moot, that we had, where we all, for almost the whole day, we did have a couple traditional sessions. Well, we had one traditional academic paper, one person who did a creative performance, sang a song, which was awesome. And then we spent the whole rest of the day divided up into groups doing creative work ourselves. We were talking about adaptation, and so we divided up into 3 groups, and we each planned an adaptation of our own, and then discussed them all together afterwards. It was really, we spent the whole day, almost the whole day, discussing together, doing our creative work in our small groups, and then discussing them together. So sometimes they can be a wide variety of things and different stuff. But they're always fun. The goal of our regional moots is to enable people to get together with folks, to be able. It's really delightful. One of the things that I usually hear from people who attend regional moots is how much fun it. People are used to being the only one, in their office or in their family, right, who loves the thing that they love. Right? I mean, it's a normal experience being a little bit, if you're not completely, maybe you're not completely isolated, and that's great, right? But just that, I'm thinking, for instance, of this one woman that I met at Middle Moot, who had she wore a T-shirt about which made a joke about Fan Orions, the Fan Orion family, and she got comments on it all day long. And she came up to me at the end. She's like, "I've never been in a place where anybody got my shirt before, much less everybody in the room got my shirt." And that's just the kind of thing that we are that happens. You like finding your tribe, right? And it's kind of one of the goals, really, of the regional moot program. We have Myth Moot. We've had Myth Moot now. We're doing Myth Moot 9 this year, so we've been doing it for 9 years. Myth Moot is a wonderful annual gathering that we do. It's our big conference every year. International conference. We get together in the Washington D.C. area, is where we've been meeting now for several years. And that's awesome, and it's a really, really wonderful thing. But not everybody can get out there, and what's more, even apart from just making it easier for people to attend by going around and doing these regional moots, it gives us an opportunity to help people, kind of connect. Like, hey, look, there are people like right there in your very state or your very city, who enjoy the things that you enjoy. So those are the visions of regional moots, and they're not designed to be, mega. This is not Comic-Con we're organizing in each little area.
The sizes of the events vary widely.
Yes.
And so there's no right or wrong way to have a regional event. It's the place where people will get your t-shirt references, but we don't want people to come away feeling like if I get less than 50 people, it's a failure, because it's not.
Yes.
Especially, with the pandemic, it has made it harder depending on where you live.
Yes.
And so anytime you can meet with your people, anytime you can sort of get to have fellowship, a very Tolkien word,
yes.
It's a success. And so
Absolutely.
we welcome all comers. It's an exciting time. I think the first time you and I met was at a small regional event.
I think it was.
And I just kind of showed up. I forget which one it was, if I'm being honest.
Was it Middle Moot?
It might have. Well, no, it wasn't Middle Moot, because we drove quite a ways.
It might have been Myth Moot. It might have been. No, it wasn't Myth Moot.
No, it was a small event at a college.
Golly, I can't remember which one it was either.
It's been too long, Corey.
It was
a long we're getting
time.
Older.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was so delightful. I met so many people there for the first time. Nick and Marie and Laurel and you and Tom Holman. It was like the first time I actually got to connect after having attended online sessions for quite a while. It was really great to be like told by someone that I'm shorter in person than they expected. They were expecting quite a tall person. It's always fun to get to meet people that you've been friends with for a long time. And that's what we want to enable other people to do, to have that experience of like, gosh, I thought you'd be taller.
That's right. That's right.
I will consider it a success if we can have that magic moment for more than just me.
Right. I usually get the reverse. I'm usually bigger than most people think I am.
You're taller than people
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's just it, and there is a real value in being able to connect. And now, of course, we do, starting this year, we are making all of our regional moots available digitally as well. And we didn't do that initially. And one of the reasons we didn't do that initially was exactly, Karita, what you're talking about, right? Because we're like we really want to emphasize being the opportunity to connect in person. That's why we're traveling around and doing this. Then the pandemic hit, and we're like, okay, circumstances are a little different than they were before. We want to make sure that we facilitate, all different kind of comfort levels and make it, possible for folks. And that's been really good. There have been a lot of people who I remember seeing at previous versions of these regional moots, because there's some regional moots that we've now been doing for, 4 or 5 years. Who were only able to attend digitally this past year, so that's been great.
And one of the things was like doing a digital moot is like you don't want to do something poorly, and so when we had the ability to do it and do it well, it was very exciting to me to open it up to people who definitely just wouldn't be able to come for whatever reason, whether they're out of the country or whether they have someone in their household who's sick. It's such a delight to have now Jean Pryor being the Digital Moot coordinator, being someone who that is her job, to make sure that the Digital Moot experience is every bit as interesting and engaging, and you're not just kind of like a fly on the wall watching other people have fun.
That's it. That's been one of the biggest challenges that we've really embraced in planning the digital element of our moots, is that we didn't, as you said, we didn't want to do it and have it be boring. We didn't want to, the fly on the wall thing is the main thing we've attempted to avoid. So we only implemented it when we felt confident that we could really integrate folks. And that's been awesome. The moots we've had this year have many of them been really fully interactive. So, I mean, what we'll tend to do, just for people who haven't been able to attend them, what we'll tend to do is we have a Zoom session for people to attend digitally, and they can see a audio and video feed of what's going on in the room, but they're not just watching what's going on in the room. They can raise their hands and talk, and when they speak, we have their voices piped through to speakers in the room. In some cases, we wouldn't always achieve this at every moment of every moot, but the goal is to have it be as fluid as so that everybody, both who are attending online and the people who are sitting in the room on site, are all interacting with each other and having one big open conversation. And we've definitely achieved that. Again, it's not always perfect. Sometimes the technology fails us. Sometimes but it's challenging to do. It's harder to do than you might think if you've never done that before.
And that's why we have a dedicated person. Like exactly. It isn't just somebody who's attending the event who volunteered to do it. No, it's someone who's that is their goal. That's their job and role.
Exactly. Druids Fire does a wonderful job with that. And I will say, so that's like myth number one, or that to kind of dispel really. A lot of people, I think, especially they will hear me say we're doing a fully hybrid moot, and a lot of people will be like, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't handle that. Don't worry. Don't have to. Well. You won't do that. We'll take care of all of that. So our regional. So that's like one thing to really emphasize is that our regional hosts, the folks who are helping us to host the event, have no responsibility whatsoever. I mean, maybe to help us communicate with the venue to make sure we understand what the specs are there to some extent,
get the internet password.
Exactly. That's helpful. That's helpful. But yeah, apart from that, it's that we take care of all of the both hardware details and online details and stuff. And as Heather was saying, it's good to know the numbers don't need to be substantial. Yeah, that's another major misconception that a lot of people have. I've heard people. Sometimes I've been talking with regional moot hosts several times before I kind of realized this has happened a couple times in the past because I'm in my head, I have my picture of regional moots, right? And the average regional moot the picture I have in my head is a group of 20 people, maybe, right? Getting together in one room, having a really fun conversation for the day. But sometimes I remember there were a couple occasions in particular when I realized about a month in that the picture that the regional moot hosts had in their head, what they thought was in my head, right. was 200 people, and that if there were fewer than 200 people, it was going to be a dismal failure and, and an object of shame and all this kind of thing. And it's no, we've had awesome moots. I mean, goodness, we just had Bay Moot in November. Mm-hmm. We had 14 people sitting in the room?
Yeah, about a dozen. Yeah. I mean, at least on site. There were more online, but on site it was a dozen.
We had about 14 people, and then we had another 25 or so who were attending digitally. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. And Rowan of Gondor, who I remember was there at our first Sunshine Moot a couple years back, said there were about 25 of us, and it was wonderful and didn't seem small at all. Yeah, no, Rowan, I have very fond memories of that moot. Actually, that was a wonderful day. I'm there in that in that little room that I am recalling from, what was it, Lake Forest, I think was the town we were in there in Florida. Anyway, that is definitely what we're focused on. And so Fellingill is asking, will there be a moot in Europe at some point? Yes. That's been one of the things that it's been hardest for us to re-implement. So we haven't even really tried to do that this year. We have done international moots before. We've had 2 Europe moots. We had one in London several years ago. We had one in the Netherlands. And the vision at the time was to alternate back and forth between the UK and the continent. Then the pandemic happened, obviously. We were planning...
Said you wish.
Yeah. We were planning Dragon Moot in Wales.
Yeah.
That was actively scheduled to happen in September of 2020, and then the pandemic. And we've not been able... scheduling ones which internationally, that's been hardest to re-implement since the pandemic. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that soon. Yeah, we have stuff in the works. In fact... we have, I don't even think I've announced this before.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is why I asked you if there's anything I shouldn't say.
No, I think
we do have something in the works internationally for early next year.
We do. And in fact, I think we can even announce what it is because I think it's definite enough.
I think so.
We're going to Australia in January of 2023. We're going to do OzMoot down in Australia. We're going to Brisbane, Australia, and doing our first Down Under Moot. I am really excited about that.
We have a tentative theme that I'm not going to announce just in case it changes. But January of next year. Mark your calendars.
Yeah, the University of Queensland. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great time. So very excited. I've never been to Australia before. I'm looking forward to going down there and being involved in a regional. That's getting down towards Australia and New Zealand has been a major goal of mine for a while to be able to connect with folks down there. I think it's going to be really cool. Good. So Fellingo on Twitch is saying that he'd be keen on helping out if we ever wanted to have a moot in Scandinavia. It was in Stockholm. That'd be really cool. Actually, I was kind of thinking of a Scandinavian moot at some point. Me.
We'll give out my contact at the end of this to make sure that anybody who's like, I want to, okay, we'll hold you to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. That'll be. And I think we had somebody was talking about Buckeye Moot earlier on as well. So
that's right.
That's very cool. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the details here, since we already have people who are interested in volunteering. And somebody mentioned Toronto. Yes, Maple Moot tracksuit Don. We've actually been flirting with Maple Moot in Toronto a couple times in the past. So having kind of building our team of folks who can help to organize that would be great. We would love to do a Canadian moot. Can I just say Canada is geographically challenging. It's a very spread out place. But Toronto is certainly the place that we've thought most about coming to. But anyway, yeah. So let's talk. So Karita, tell us more about what does a regional moot host do when someone says hey, I want to help to make a moot happen? What are the things that we rely on local folks to do, because we can't do it without them. I mean, that's the number one thing.
No, we cannot. We need someone who can be on the ground in the area, local. And the very first thing you would do is get in contact with me. So I'm the regional moot coordinator. You can email the info or we can give my Signum email out at the end of this, but you email me and say, I'm in this area, I would like to host a regional event. And then we start talking. So once we start talking, I'll ask you probably questions like, are there other people who would be interested in helping you? We don't like to put everything on one person. That way, if you have an emergency come up, you don't feel like, oh God, do I go to my grandmother's deathbed or do I go to this event? We don't want that pressure on you.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest things is that it's not
try to get at least 2 people.
Yeah. It's not that it's necessarily a massive workload that needs to be divided among multiple people. It's just if for whatever reason we lose touch with the whole thing falls apart. And that's the thing the thing that we don't want to have. Yeah.
So we've had one person head up a moot before and it was fine, but preferably we like to have at least 2. So asking okay, you want to have it where in the country are you? what time of year is friendly for a moot? Because we don't live where you live, so we don't know. Like, I don't know what it's like in Utah. I've never been. And
yeah,
so, like,
Utah I was thinking of Utah as well. We've been discussing doing a Salt Lake City moot, trying to get that.
Yeah.
And so it's a classic
and we were
example.
Like, is spring okay? And they're like, probably not.
Yeah, I was like, hey, let's do March or something. And then and she was like, but the mountain passes might not be open by then. And I'm like, see, there you go. I would never have even local thought
people
that.
Wouldn't have known. Here in the Great Midwest, not a lot of mountain passes that I have to think about, to be honest. So having at least one or two people local who I can get their emails, get their contact, and start having a dialogue about what time of year is good. Do you have any leads on a venue? What are your local contacts like? So a lot of times events end up being held somewhere that the person, not always, but a lot of times, that the person has a connection to. Maybe it's somewhere, maybe it's their house of worship. Maybe it's somewhere that they work. Maybe it's somewhere that they go to school. A lot of our best leads often come from the person locally. Yeah. So like, you know the area better than we do. And we don't want to just grab like a hotel like ballroom because like number one, they're expensive, and number two, like kind of boring. So asking you like, what's a place that can fit like, 20 to 50 on the small side, 50 to 100 on the big side?
Yeah. We've almost never had a regional moot with more than 100 people. We had one that got over 100 once,
and that was before the pandemic.
That was before the pandemic. Yeah, yeah.
They tend to be smaller now.
That same event is 30 people right now in person. So
exactly.
This year,
yeah. And so just asking like, do you have a venue or do you have a couple places in mind? And if not, that's where I come in and I say, okay, let's Google together. I'll come up with some ideas. I'll send them to you. You can scout them out. The main constraints are like we need a good internet connection and it needs to be under $1,000 to rent.
Yeah, we can't spend a whole lot of money on the venue because I mean that's one of the things, like we don't want to charge a whole lot for our regional moots, and we don't like need, again, we're not trying to fish for hundreds of attendees, so
we're keeping it low stakes on purpose.
Low stakes is exactly it. We can't, if we reserved a venue that cost like $3,000, then like we'd be in trouble if we didn't get a lot of people to counterbalance that cost, and we don't want to be in that place. So we're much happier being in a humble spot that's free. We don't need fancy. We don't need fancy. We've met in, like church community rooms and college classrooms and, lots of different kinds of places.
Yeah. If people are willing to have us, we're not going to turn up our noses at something that's like a community room, a public park, or a library, or
a library. We met in the downstairs room of a public library for one of our moots. It was awesome. These good
internet connection is important.
That's essential.
That's like the one thing.
Essential.
Increasingly important.
Increasingly important. We do need a strong internet connection, but as long as we can get a strong internet connection, then most of the rest of the like aesthetics of the place is much lesser concern. But I agree that's the number one thing. Like as I say, our regional hosts are essential. We can't do our regional moots without them. But then this is the number one thing, because we can't, like, from the outside, not knowing the area, not knowing anything, not being able to actually go to and see a venue to see if it's as suitable as it sounds like it might be. It would be very, very difficult for us to make all of the arrangements without the boots on the ground. So that's the number one thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of fun things that the local planners get to do. Fun from my perspective, stuff like helping come up with a theme. It's a very creative process. You get to sort of say, is there anything sort of locally that we want to do honors to? Is there anything that kind of fits in with the local vibe or the interest of this particular area or group? We want it to be unique and special and ultimately be something that you want to attend. You don't want to plan a party that you don't want to go to. So coming up with a theme that's engaging and fun, but also is, ultimately a very creative process. And I'm here to help. Like I'll be honest with you and be like, that's a terrible idea. But other than vetoing really, really bad ideas, which I've never had to do, but I'm willing to do if I have to, it's part of the joyful part of it is being like, what's our name?
Exactly. Figuring out, because if we just like did 100% of the planning as far as theme and everything else for every event, then we'd be like, they'd all get very much of a muchness after a while, because it'd be the same team planning every single one. And so it's nice to just have, especially when we have a team of folks who are involved in helping to plan the regional moot, to hear like, what would you guys like to do? What would be really fun? What would you most enjoy talking about as far as a theme? Even as far as what we do in the event, like, right now we're finalizing the schedule for Sunshine Moot coming up, for instance. And so we're talking there about like, what kind of activities do we want to do? Do we want to have discussion? Do we want to do creative work? Do we want to, there's all kinds of options that we can do. And so again, a lot of that is like, well, what do you think would be fun? What would you most enjoy?
And celebrating the differences. Like we've had past events that, the theme was second breakfast, and another one that was sacrifice. Right. And like, those are very different from each other. Those are pretty different, but they're both interesting and they're engaging and they mattered to the people who showed up. And that is ultimately what we want. We want you to be a part of an event that you want to be at. Right. And so that's a fun thing that the local contact gets to do. So finding a venue, picking a theme. The other sort of the last thing I would say is like being the welcoming wagon to the attendees. So I am not at the events. Corey usually is.
I usually
But we want a local person to be there to be like, welcome, these are the new friends that you didn't know you had. Right. And that's one of my favorite things. The feedback we collect feedback after each event, and one of my favorite things to see is how many people say, like, I didn't know how badly I needed this until it was over. Being with people, being able to laugh and talk and meet people of like mind, it scratches an itch you don't know you have. So that's like what we're looking for from a local organizer.
Yeah. So let's talk about what Signum does, because again, another misconception that a lot of people have is that they're like, well, I'd be happy to help out, I'd like to see a moot happen in my area, and I'm willing to help, but I don't know anything about conference planning. That seems like a huge job to be like, okay, now I'm like planning a conference in my area. I have no idea how to do that. The secret is you don't have to have any idea how to do that. So Karita, tell folks about. So here's the first thing that you get as regional moot host is that you get to work with Karita, who is
you get the pleasure of my company for however long it takes to plan the event.
Who is going to work with you all the way through.
That's right. I'm a lot of fun, I promise. Yeah. So the first thing that we provide is a dedicated person, and that right now, that person is me. So I'm the person you will talk to about like what time of year, what type of venue, what kind of theme. I'm there every step of the way, from the very, very first email to the day of the event. I am there for you. So that's the first thing that Signum provides is like, you're never going it alone. Never. You're never going it without
a Signum representative. That's not the idea at all. Yeah.
Never.
I mean, and I would just say like to just even kind of frame that a different way. We're not asking anybody to plan and host a conference. Yes. We're hosting the conference. We're organizing the planning of the conference. It's a Signum conference, right? We're gonna do most of the heavy lifting. We just need we need help coordinating that in the geographical area. Help us to find things. And we love to have creative input from the people to help to give it
We're like Dracula. You have to invite us in.
You have to invite us in, but once you invite us in,
once you invite us in, we'll take over. Don't worry.
That's a delightful metaphor, Karita. I love that.
That makes me sound a lot scarier than I am.
Yes. Invite us into your part of the country, and once we cross the threshold, we'll take care of everything. Nothing more to worry about.
I'll work on that. I'll workshop it. I'll come up with a more friendly
maybe not the number one metaphor we should go with, but but anyway, but as I say, the main point again is don't think about, like, so if you have thought about volunteering, don't let the idea of, like, I am planning a major event and I don't have time for that, or I can't do that. Don't let that stop you. I mean, there's, of course, like, there are going to be details you'll be involved with, and especially, there's always a little bit of, stress in the few weeks leading up to it. That's very natural. And that, but even then, we're going to be, with you all the way through. But as I say, the frame, don't forget that, we're organizing the event. This is our event. Don't worry about it. This is our event.
If it makes people feel better, it means if it goes terribly wrong in some way, it's our fault. It's
our fault. Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet, but
nope, hasn't happened. Yeah.
It's all on me. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
And so you're not planning a conference. Signum is planning a conference, and you are a local contact. I call people like my local contact or my local volunteer. You are not the coordinator. I will coordinate. Yes. You're the volunteer. You're the contact. And that's not to diminish the role, because, like, we can't do it without you.
Yeah.
But to take the pressure off of, it's going to be okay. It's fun. It's cool. It's easy. And I'm here for a reason.
Right. Right.
Besides
absolutely.
my, like, dashing good looks, I actually do contribute. It's going to be okay.
That's right. I mean, I would also add on the other end, I know that we've several times had people who stepped in to help because they love organizing events like this. And this is,
right.
In which case,
yeah. My contact in Australia is very accomplished, and I'm like, you know more about this than I do, but I'm just happy to be here. Like, right. If you're a professional event planner, like, wonderful.
Cool.
That's great. But if you're really not, happy. And, like, you've only ever hosted a birthday party, that's also fine.
It's also
that's
fine.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and this is, if you've ever wondered. So, I mean, there are opportunities to do more and be more involved if you'd like. But just as I say, keep in mind, that's not our assumption. It's not our expectation, that kind of burden is on folks. And Karita, you've also said you do you, even in the part which is kind of the number one emphasis for the local contacts, finding a venue, you're involved in supporting that as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to make phone calls, because I know some people have, like, phone anxiety. I'm happy to send cold emails. I'm not a shrinking butterfly. Like, I'm very willing to get out there. I need you to let me know if, actually that community center is, like, right next to currently a nuclear waste. Fine. Oh, please tell me.
This is the kind of thing we won't know if
a local contact
in
is very
area.
useful. But
right.
if you're nervous about talking to people or putting yourself out there, I can come in and be like, just give me a list. Give me a list of your top picks, and I'll call them. Support. I can help Google too, and be like, what are the parks in your area? What are the libraries in your area? What are the houses of worship in your area? Are there a bookstore that have an event space, or I can help with that. I'm not going to just be like, come to me with a venue and I will decide. No. Like,
right.
I'm here to help.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would emphasize also, we don't expect anyone, and this is another of the, like, major misunderstandings that people have had sometimes in the past. We don't expect anybody to obligate themselves. Like, you're not going to sign any contracts. No. We don't want you to sign any contracts. No. We also don't want you to spend any money at all. No. This should not cost you a thing. You are not on the hook for the event if we don't make enough money. This is we are completely financing the entire thing. Again, we're hoping the financing is relatively small, because we want to be able to have small events, and
which often narrows the search of venues pretty rapidly.
It does. It does.
If we just like look for places that are $1,000 or less, usually it narrows the list pretty quickly. And yeah, we bankroll things. We sign the contracts. If the venue requires any kind of like liability insurance, we provide that.
We provide
the
that,
local person is not on the hook for anything financial or legal.
That's it.
You're a local contact.
Yep.
You're a scout.
A scout. Exactly. Yeah. So, and again, because I know that often intimidates people, as they're thinking like, I'm going to have to like sign papers. I'm going to, what if we lose money and then it's going to cost me? Like, I honestly, it's funny. I never, at first when we started doing this, I never even imagined, like, it's so far outside my worldview that Signum would ever like leave a local host holding the
with
bag.
The bill.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like, that's so far outside my worldview. It literally never even occurred to me that anyone would
wish you didn't
that.
have to say, but we say anyway,
exactly. Exactly. I didn't even realize I had to say that at first until there was like this moment in the middle of planning one of our early regional events when it suddenly dawned on me, like the local contact was like, seemed to me like really anxious about the size of the moot. And I couldn't figure out like, what is the investment that's, like, why is this person so invested in I would think we're so invested in the idea of having such a large event. And then I suddenly figured out, oh my goodness, they think they're going to have to cover the difference if we don't make enough money. And I'm like, holy cow,
we would
never, ever do that. We would never do that. So yeah, and again, we don't even like, there have been some times in the past when one of our local contacts has volunteered to, sort of float the costs and then we reimburse them. We can do that. I'd rather not even do that. I mean, I'd rather not even do that. I would rather just, if anything is to be paid, let us know. We'll send money. And because I don't even want, I mean, again, sometimes we've done the reimbursement thing and it's fine. It's no big deal. But that's not our model. That's not our assumption.
A travel coffee and send me the receipt for the, $25. I will make sure you get reimbursed for that coffee for sure. Yeah. And if people want to donate to help cover an event, we have the option to, when you pay for a ticket, you can put a donation on top of it to, and that money goes to support Signum. So we're very grateful to our donors because they make this possible. But we don't want to make people think like, I have to foot the bill or I have to sign the contract. You do not.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So assistance with coming up with themes and activities is another thing that we help with. Corey helps sometimes. I try to help if you need sort of a boost and influx of like creative juice. That's why I have a list of ideas that I can just pull from the hat and be like, how about this? Oftentimes people are very excited and they have like a vision for how they want their event to go. But if you are nervous about it and you're like, I'm out of ideas, suddenly head empty, no thoughts, we're here to help. That also is not on you.
Yeah, and I especially enjoy helping in the final sort of build-up as we're beginning to see the shape of things. Again, sometimes we get a moot where we have like a whole bunch of people who want to present, and that's cool. In that case, it's pretty easy to make up the schedule and figure out what's happening. Sometimes that happens less, and
people just want to chill.
It's perfectly normal. You get people who are interested to attend, but fewer people who have volunteered to step forward with presentations. In which case, I always find that a really fun opportunity, and I really enjoy stepping in at that point to say, hey, let's figure it out. Let's talk about it. Let's decide what we want to do. So, like we did, for instance, just to give another example, at Moot this past year in November, we chose a bunch of passages of text and had open discussions on those passages of text. Boy, that took us like all day. We barely had time for anything. I was pushing to get through all of the stuff that just like let's just have a discussion. Let's just have a discussion on the theme. So that was a lot of fun. So we're again, it's another way in which we don't want our local hosts to feel that they're under pressure, to be like, if I don't come up with a brilliant theme and like really interesting ideas for what everybody can do, then everyone's going to have a horrible time and it's going to be all my fault. That's not
not
That's
so.
not the situation at all.
No, no. Another thing that we help do is create a welcome packet. So usually it's a Google Doc, and I send it to people as they buy their ticket. So the welcome packet is effectively, this is where the event is, this is when the event is, here are some lunch options, places you could go on the lunch break to get a bite to eat. And then like maybe a few hotels if you're traveling in for the event. It's sort of a friendly Google Doc to say, here's where you go and what time, and also here's some local stuff that you might be interested in. And we also will email that out to everybody who signs up. So the local volunteer doesn't do that; they don't have to create it, they don't have to send it out. And when it comes to tickets, we host the registration page, we process the ticket sales. You never have to know how that works.
Nope.
That's all us. So, that's nice. And one of the things that we talked about a lot earlier, but I want to circle back to, is like we also provide the infrastructure for the digital Moot. So the local volunteer doesn't have to kind of have their attention pulled in multiple directions. They can be at their own event and be present and not also have to like try to divide their attention. And it's I think a wonderful part of it that we've been able to offer that I'm excited to develop as we host more moots. We learn something every time. We always get wonderful feedback, wonderful suggestions that we've been able to incorporate to make the digital side better and better as we go along.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been a growth process over this past year as we've been learning more about that. So not only do we take care of all of the technical aspects, we'll host the session, we'll handle the tech. I'm often handling the tech on site.
We create the Zoom link, we create the Slack.
We'll do all that stuff. But not only that, we also have Druid's Fire, Jean, our wonderful digital moot facilitator, who will be there on the day. So we have someone we have a designated person who will be the host in the online space, right, in the Zoom session, and moderating the Zoom session and everything, so that again there's no responsibility for anybody involved in the event itself to even be thinking or worrying about that. It should all happen sort of organically, and not it's not something that the local coordinator needs to think about at all.
Oh, yeah. So you have like, in addition to Corey and his, magnetic presence, you also have the benefit of Jean and I. And I like to think of Jean and I as like whenever you have like a duo of superheroes, like you have the Scarlet Witch and like Quicksilver or whatever, that's us. So I'm like the regional moot coordinator, and Jean is the digital moot coordinator. And we're sort of very like, I hand the baton off. I'm like, this is your day to shine, Jean. Like this is the moment to be the person who is ready to support all of our digital attendees, which has been wonderful to see. Tell people more about the tech setup, Corey. Like, do they need a projector? Do they need a mic? Tell the people what they need to know, because you actually go to the events. So.
I do. We need to have an outlet, an internet connection, and a vertical surface upon which we can project things.
Like a wall.
A wall or a projector screen,
for example.
Optimally. But I will bring with me a projector, set of microphones, laptop, little soundboard, wires, connections, camera, all these things, handheld mics that we'll use in the room. One of the actually, the hardest part of doing a good hybrid moot is not the internet; it's the physical connections. Because miking a room is almost impossible. I look forward to like the day, like the advance of like microphone technology, when I can just like hit a button and like the whole room is effectively mic'd, but it's really hard to do. So what we do is we have handheld mics, and the restriction, like the major way in which the digitization, right, the hybridization of our moots has affects the room, the actual physical gathering, is that we need to make sure that everything we say into a microphone so that the people who are attending digitally can hear it, because anything that's not said into a microphone is said in a corner and nobody online can hear it. But we have a whole bunch of handheld mics that we kind of hand around the room, and so people who are there talk into the mics, and people who are on Zoom are on speakers and they can hear it and everything. So anyway, it's yeah. So but all that stuff I bring with me. So we really don't need any tech on site. Sometimes we can, like we've been in some places. I'm thinking of Middle Moot this year, for instance, in Iowa, where we were in this sort of auditorium space, and we were interfacing, instead of using our speaker, we were interfacing with the room audio, and using their handheld mics from the room. So we can do that if that is a thing there, but we don't.
If you hand an audio system to us, we're not going to say no.
Right. I mean, if there's like speakers in the room that we can use, we'll totally try to use them. Sweet. We did that at Baymoot also. Use the room speakers. Anyway, that's possible, and we can work with other systems, but we can also work with a bare room with a good internet connection and an outlet and a plug. Yeah. Exactly.
Yep. And preferably walls, which we've never done it.
Preferably walls. Right. Like out in a meadow or something.
Never
Again,
gonna say never, but
we do need an outlet. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah.
You don't want a fire festival situation.
Right. Hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened yet. We'll see. But yeah, that's our what we need to have. Provided there is really quite minimal.
Right. And you don't have to, there's in terms of food, there's no catering. You are not responsible for making sure that people eat. We try to pick venues, if we can, we try to pick a venue that is close enough to restaurants that people can drive there and back, or walk there and get back on the lunch break. So
yeah, the optimal kind of lunch situation in the middle of the day, because it's another way that we keep the cost down. When you start doing catering, the costs go up really
when people
fast.
Have different dietary needs,
it's both very complicated and very expensive. What we have found to be simplest, easiest, and most congenial for everybody is to have a lunch break in which we can split up, either get food and bring it back, or eat somewhere else and come back. And I find this creates a really fun situation. Kind of let people do what they want to do, right? Not only does it enable us to easily accommodate whatever people can or want to eat, but also socially as well. So for many, the lunch break is a wonderful opportunity to hang out together and just enjoy some separate chat that's not focused on theme and discussion and whatever, but just to kind of get to know each other a little bit. For some people, the lunch hour is a great time to get away and recharge a little bit. If being
to sit in the car and just be like,
if being in a room full of strangers is not invigorating to you, then you can have an hour to be on your own. That's also, I think, something that has been very useful for folks.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that kind of openness and flexibility. So yeah, ideally, the venue will be a lot of our have been either walking distance or within a 10-15 minute drive from places we can go, and then a bunch of people will either sort of carpool to lunch and come back together, or walk off. Again, I'm thinking of Baymoot in November when we all just kind of wandered. We were in Berkeley and we all just kind of wandered off and got different stuff from different street vendors and little restaurants and stuff.
And this is one of the things that a local contact can really contribute is in the absence of suggestions, I will Google restaurants near address of venue. But I've gotten some great suggestions, for TextMoot that's coming up. Someone sent me an email and they're like, here's 4 places that you should know about that are great lunch options. And I'm like, wonderful. One of them has posters of Conan the Barbarian. It's wonderful.
There you go.
This is pandering to us directly. This is a place where a local volunteer or a local contact can say, I know this great little cafe that you should definitely try. The fill in the blank dish at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to put that in the welcome doc to make it as personable as possible, as much your vibe as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that we take into consideration. One of the other things that we provide is a Google form for people to submit to the call for proposals. So you don't have to run that. In past, we've kind of done it ad hoc, like different ways. But for most events that I've participated in, there's a Google form where people submit their paper, their creative presentation, the thing that they want to do at the event. And then I pass those on to the local contacts and say, here are all of the people who might want to do something at your event. Let's create a schedule. So you don't have to run that. You don't have to know how to run that because, that's what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we take care of promotion as well. Again, you're not. I mean, of course, if there are local opportunities to spread the word to local communities there, great. We wouldn't know about that, so that would be really really wonderful. But again, it's not our assumption. It's not our assumption that having stepped forward to help us host this, you're going to find us people to show up too. That's not our assumption at all.
No.
We'll be taking the lead on promoting the event, and of course increasingly as we do more and more of these moots, we have folks who have attended our moots in the past that we'll be able to reach out to. Of course, if we're doing it's a bit of an adventure when we're doing a moot in a brand new region, right? Where we've never been before. That's a really fun adventure, by the way. But yeah, we spread the word as far as we can within our community and see what we get. So yeah, I mean, we're always open to ideas from folks.
Yeah, if people have I should put a flyer up in the local bookstore or library or coffee shop, we're happy to, enable and support and embolden you to do that. We also have the mailing list, the emailing list that we ask past attendees, do you want to come to this cool new event? It's on this date. But we also have the social media presence. So far the burden of promotion it's on us. And if you want to try to get it in the local paper or the church bulletin or what have you, please. But if not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else is on our list of what does Signum provide? We provide recordings of the event after the fact for anybody who bought a ticket. That's online or on site. Anybody who buys a ticket gets a link to a recording of the sessions afterward. I know there have been some people who are can't be there on the day of, but I'd really like to have a recording. I'm if you buy a ticket, we'll give you a recording. We're not going to check to make. We don't take a show of hands to see who actually came.
We don't take attendance. It is one of the advantages of the hybrid moot, is that we do, everything is being recorded, everything is being transmitted, for the online folks, and it means we have a recording of things. Now, one thing I'd emphasize with this, by the way, is that if you're presenting or something, this doesn't mean that your presentation is now publicly on the internet.
We're not going to put you on YouTube.
We're not going to put you on YouTube.
We promise.
What we do, so we restrict the access to the recordings just to people who attended, who bought tickets to the regional moots. So they can see it after the fact, but nobody else is going to be able to get access to that. So just to make sure that people aren't worried about the recording business.
As a person who has a fairly shy social media presence with locked accounts, I'm sympathetic to the person who's oh no, this is going to be everywhere. No, it's not. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a real benefit to folks who, because there are a lot of people who'd be as you say, that sounds really cool, but I happen to be, I can't come that day, or I'm busy that weekend.
My sister's getting married.
Yeah, sign up for the Digital Moot, and when you sign up for the Digital Moot, you'll be able to get a full recording of the whole day to be able to watch it all asynchronously. Yeah. Awesome.
That takes us to the end of our list of things that people definitely need to know. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer as best as I can.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm seeing lots of really cool suggestions.
Love a suggestion.
Yeah, love suggestions. So we've got people talking about their own regions and stuff.
Ah.
Heather on Twitch here is saying that I think Heather, I was scrolling up because I know you mentioned it before. You are in the Ozarks, right? In Missouri.
Oh,
in South,
cool.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's saying they have an indie themed, an indie bookstore with a Tolkien themed room under the stairs, for instance. Like, pretty
No.
cool. Pretty
Oh,
cool.
that's too good.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really fun idea. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it is.
We have a couple people have mentioned Seattle or the Pacific Northwest, and I'm not going to lie, Pacific Northwest has been near the very top of my personal regional moot bucket list for a long time now. I've been wanting to get up to the, whenever I'm looking at the map of the country, the Pacific Northwest is like a big hole in and it's
we're not avoiding you on purpose.
No, all we've been missing are local contacts, our folks. I would love to be able to hold something in Seattle or Portland. I think that would be an awesome place for a regional moot. Either of those cities would be an awesome place for a regional moot. Seattle might be kind of fun. I've always kind of pictured Seattle because then people could theoretically come from Portland or down from Vancouver, so that we can kind of get the whole area a little bit. But
would it be easier to collect people's emails now or to have them contact me?
Let's have them contact us.
Okay.
Let's have them contact us. Yeah. So the ways that you can either contact Karita directly, karita.alexander@signumu.org, or you can always send an email to our general info line, info@signumu.org, and our door ward will see that your email gets to the right people.
That's right.
So that's the easiest thing. Just send an email to info@signumu.org and let us know that there's no you're not committing yourself with your initial email. We'll talk about it and see what we think. If you think it'll work out. We may also sometimes we'll get somebody who volunteers. And sometimes we'll kind of wait until we have more than one because again we like to have, we don't want the whole burden of facilitating that local event resting on the one person.
To put on one person, it's also one of those things where if you're curious about it and you're like, well, I want this to happen near me, but I am busy until X date. That's okay too. Like I can put you in the calendar, reach out to this person after this date, sort of to get you in my schedule and to say, this person's interested. They're not ready to commit to anything, but they're interested, and reach out to them at a later date. I'm always building my contact list of that way if I hear from a second person who's like gung-ho, I'm like, perfect. I can connect you with this other person who's also interested but not ready to take it on all by themselves. I love to sort of matchmake.
Yeah, and sometimes, by the way, the multiple people don't necessarily have to be in exactly the same spot. So like, for instance, say we have somebody in Portland and somebody in Seattle, both of whom are interested in hosting the event. Well, that's actually awesome because they could work together on a team. We don't have, the one person, obviously, whichever city we actually have the event in first, would be the person who would be the primary boots on the ground for the venue, obviously, but the other person can be involved in the team helping to decide the theme and everything else, because then here's the beauty. In future years, we could rotate, right? We could do it in Seattle one year and Portland the next year and Seattle the year after that. We've often done that kind of thing. In fact, I really like for them to kind of wander around. Our middle moot has wandered around. Yeah, we've had Iowa and Kansas City, and we kind of gone back and forth between Iowa and Kansas City. And I think that would be, that kind of, in Texas, we've had Tex Moot in Fort Worth, Houston, Waco, and we're going to be in Austin. I should know this as it's like in 10 days. Yes, right. We're going to be in Austin. I'm flying to Austin in 10 days.
We're going to be in, and Corey looked at his phone.
Right,
Austin.
exactly. Right, check boarding pass. Austin. Yes, okay. That's where we're going to be. So anyway, with that, you know, so that's great. Again, having people from not just a city but a region who are coming together and SoCal Moot as well has been something that's kind of moved, and I'd love to see it move around more. We've been in LA both of the times that we've been out there. It would be really fun to do. I'd love to do like a San Diego Moot. You know, I'd like, you know, there was a possibility at one point, didn't end up happening, but like maybe going out to like Riverside or anyway, like it doesn't have to be like in downtown LA or whatever. So having folks, because it also makes the regional Moot like more accessible for people when we can move it around. Like when we have the Moot up, when we had the Moot, like Middle Moot, right? When we had it up in Iowa, we had people coming down from Minneapolis to attend that. When we had it down in Kansas City, we had people coming from Arkansas to that one. So, you know, I mean, it's really nice to kind of shift the, you know, we've been talking about the same thing with Magnolia Moot in the Southeast, where we had it in Charlotte before, but we're looking into the possibilities of, you know, maybe rotating that around a little bit. Maybe, you know, we've been talking about Charleston, we've been talking about Atlanta, you know, so it's kind of nice. Joshua says he's still waiting for Big Apple Moot. It's New York is interesting. New York is the city is a hard place to host a Moot. Finding a venue under $1,000 in New York is
you can do
hard.
It. I'll listen.
It's hard. We're open. We're totally open to New York Moot. It's
send that email.
Yeah, we've done New England Moot, and a whole bunch of folks from the New York area came up for New England Moot this year. But it would be nice. It'd be nice to do something like in New York, even Jersey. We could do something in Jersey, and you know, we haven't even done, because we've had Myth Moot in the Mid-Atlantic region.
Even Jersey. Come on, there's lots of lovely people in Jersey, Corey.
It's so true. It's so true. So I was just thinking about New Yorkers. I lived in Jersey. I lived in New York for 4 years, so I just code shifted right there for a second there. So anyway, and Druid's Fire, you're right. A Buckeye Moot could also rotate around Ohio. I think that'd be great. You know,
absolutely.
To different Ohio cities.
It's it got a bad rap in The Good Place. If you saw that show, it was very rude. I was born in Cincinnati, so I'm partial.
There you go. So we're working on it. And by the way, actually, I would say when it comes to like potentially urgent calls for volunteers, we are actively working on trying to plan Buckeye Moot for May in 2 months this year. There's still time to get it together. Diminishing window of time.
Nothing has been committed to
firmed
yet,
but we're working on it.
If you're in Ohio and you want to help out, you know where to find me.
Exactly. So that's something that we would actively like to pursue this year.
Trying to squeeze it in before Myth Moot.
Yeah, exactly. Myth Moot is the end of June, and so we don't like to schedule anything within like a month of that.
No.
But probably at this point towards the latter end of May is what we're thinking about.
If we can pull it off.
If we can pull it off, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one we're actively working on. As I say, we're totally open to. I mean, I would love to do Fellingill. I would love to do a Stockholm Moot would be fantastic.
That'd be so cool.
That'd be great.
One of the things that I love about the regional moots is the excuse to go to other places, because I think my very, very first moot was in Baltimore or close to Baltimore. I was like, I've never been to Baltimore.
Right. Well, that's where it was. It was the Mid Moot back in the Mid-Atlantic area. Yeah, when we at the University of Maryland when we were there.
I left my favorite water bottle at that place. But it was a great time otherwise.
Yeah, it was a classroom at the University of Maryland where we had our session, and oh my goodness, so talk about like that was a mistake because I was helping organize that, and I made a noob error then, which was I neglected to notice that though we were having the moot at the University of Maryland, I neglected to notice that it was on the day that the University of Michigan was in town for a football game, and we were like awash in people in blue and yellow the whole day. Yeah, like it was challenging.
You sound like a bunch of nerds and a bunch of
yes.
sports people converging on each other.
There were about 150,000 people there for the football game, and then like the 20 of us who were there for mid-moot.
And I was like, I've never been here before. Maybe it's always like this. I don't know. They're like, where are you from? And I'm like, well, we're coming from Indiana. They're like, Indiana?
Right.
What?
Yeah, Indiana is not in town. Like, this is the wrong game.
I don't think that we were even the person who came from furthest away, though.
No, there's
you might be amazed how far people will drive to get to your moots.
The regional moots are funny. Like it's usually they're for people like in the town. Your average moot attendee has usually driven like fewer than 2 hours to get there, but there are always people who come in or who fly in from
are looking for an excuse.
That often happens, right? Like, hey, I've always wanted to go
to Florida anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's make it happen.
Anyway, we're here to legitimize those choices.
we are.
The excuse
we are.
They need.
Give you an excuse to come. So Brisbane, Australia, January 2023. I'm just saying, it's time to plan your travel. So, No, it'll be. They're all a lot of fun. So anyway, let us know if you are interested in hosting. This is just it's a really fun opportunity, and I'm so excited. This is of course one of the ways, Signum, of course, in lots of ways, because we are and have always been a completely online institution, have not been institutionally affected by the pandemic in the way that a lot of institutions have been affected. Of course, many of us have been personally affected in lots of ways, but institutionally we haven't been that affected by the pandemic. But our regional moots is one of the places where we have, of course. It's really changed a lot. It was... Our regional moot program had massive momentum right before the pandemic hit. We were on pace for like 10 to 12 regional moots in a calendar year at that point. We had plans not only for Dragon Moot in Wales, which I'm hoping we can revive, but we also had plans for Nippon Moot in Japan. I saw Takako here earlier. Oh no, she's still here now.
Hi, Takako.
So and anyway, that was also supposed to happen in September of 2020, scheduled for September of 2020. And again, our getting back into our Europe moot cycle, and there's a bunch of our other moots that haven't happened this year. Is our first year back with our regional moot since the pandemic, and so there are a bunch of things which haven't come together this year.
Sometimes it's a venue being like, oh, we don't know if we're going to let people from the outside in yet, and we're trying to build it back up slowly. We want to be respectful, and so if there's a venue that's like masks are required or what have you, where we do our utmost to abide by the rules put forward by whoever is gracious enough to host us. And so, I'm hopeful for the future. I know that people miss each other and that this meets a need in the community. And so it's been a great pleasure to get to know all of the people who have put so much love and so much energy and excitement into the past few events that we had last year and to the 2 events that we have coming up real soon here.
Right.
They're all different from each other. They all have their own character and special vibe to them. And it's been so much fun to get to know everyone.
Yeah. The whole process of planning the moot is as rewarding as the event itself, and has been a really fun opportunity to engage with folks in our community and to enable folks in our community to become actively involved and help. It is a source of great satisfaction to be able to see, right, to be able to see the event happen, to know that you have facilitated this awesome day that people are really enjoying. And I can tell you, again, from just having been to many of these now, the number one tone, the number one note is gratitude. Like, that people have just for the opportunity to get together, to have this. It's just such a refreshing day to be able to get together, hang out with like-minded people, and really enjoy a day of fun and discussion. So, and
the goal is always to improve with every single event. I always send out like a little Google survey to be like, how can we be better for the next event? What went well? What didn't go well? Because we're always learning, and we're always sort of finding new ways to meet the needs in the community and to make each event better and better as the years go by. We hope that each event is a good enough experience that you'll want to do it again. Yes. Because otherwise we would run out of cities eventually.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
We try not to burn people out.
Exactly, and we have some robust traditions now. This is going to be our 5th Tex Moot that's happening this year. We had our 5th Middle Moot earlier in the year. We've had some, those are the 2 oldest ones. So 1 to 5 years is places where we can establish and come back every year. It's awesome. We love to have that kind of rotation.
Little family reunion.
Exactly. Yeah. Annual family reunion for the folks in that area is a really great opportunity. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We've taken, I think, enough of your time. I think, Karita, thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Just to remind folks again, info@signumu.org, or you can send an email directly to Karita at karita.alexander@signumu.org, and we can we will be happy to talk with you and see what we can set up. All right. So hoping that lots of new regional moots come from this. Looking forward to opportunities to get to connect with more folks, and we'll see everybody around. Bye now.